Welcome. Welcome to Trinity Podcast. I'm super excited. Here at Trinity, we are helping Americans to understand and master real estate investing, business and personal credit, and the money matrix, how each one affects you, and how to leverage your own Trinity wealth. Take control of your economic independence. And today, Becky and I are going to be speaking about how to keep more of the money you make. Becky Estep Noble, the credit coach queen, and I'm Joanna Wright, the real estate wealth maven. And we're excited to bring you these 5 best tips, the five big tips to keeping more of the money that you make. So Becky, we were just talking about an example of what you're going through right now. I thought this is a perfect thing to bring to the podcast, as most people don't understand taxes and most people don't understand, capital gains and how to keep more of the money they make, through strategy with your CPA. So I was wondering if you can go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you were speaking of and why you were so excited to get a hold of your CPA today.
Oh my goodness. This is like the biggest burden, maybe not the biggest burden, but it has been like super stressful in my life as a business owner, figuring out the tax game. And there's like this whole underlying thing, like everybody's like, oh, this is, you can write that off and you can do this and you can do that. And you have all this stuff and information floating out there everywhere. And it's kind of like Joanna says about real estate investing all the time, like Google tubing. You try to Google tube tax stuff and try to figure it out. And then you hire a CPA and you think you've made like this good decision. As a business owner, I don't want to do anything with that. I want them to handle that. But then it's like a couple years later and you're like, man, I feel like I'm still paying a lot in taxes and maybe there's some better strategies. I don't feel like they're really sitting down with me and coming up with like my plan for next year. And long story short, I got on a call today with a bookkeeper, CPA person. And what set her apart in my mind immediately, I knew this is somebody that I might want to work with over other experiences that I've had in the past, is that she's like, well, what's your story? Like I have to know your story because that's the most important thing. And so it's so funny because that's what Joanna talks about all the time, that when she's doing any type of real estate investing, she wants to know the story of the house before she can know how to structure a deal. Well, the same thing with business owners. I have to know a business owner's story to know how to go get them funding for their business. And so when she asked me that question, I'm like, oh, so, and it was just a breath of fresh air. And so we chose this subject today just because we wanted to give like a few tips on how and how you can do some write-offs, some things that you could easily add into that you might not know, and then why you would want to do some of this stuff. So I can't wait for us to dive into this because Joanna geeks out on taxes. That's what she talks about all the time.
Oh my God, yeah. So I totally geek out on tax and legal stuff. I'm excited to learn it all the time. I'm not a CPA or financial advisor or an attorney of any sort. However, I listen, I pay attention, and I follow the guidelines of great CPAs and lawyers. They have steered me correctly into keeping more of the money that I make. And so that's why we want to share this with you today, because the strategy, the story, is what's important, right? Like Becky was saying that I'm always asking my clients, they're like, hey, do you think this is a good deal? I'm like, well, what's the story? Right? And then we can figure out if it's going to be a good deal or not, because it's not just about the numbers. And your CPA should be thinking the same way. They're not a data entry clerk. It's not just about the numbers, right? It's about the story and how can you strategize and twist it and making it into this mad scientist thing that you don't have to pay much in taxes. And that's what they are good at, those that take on that responsibility, right? Not every CPA will do this. And I've argued with multiple CPAs, right, for my clients. So I tell my clients, this is how you should do it. This is what you should ask your CPA. And they come back to me and they're like, they said you're wrong, Joanna. And I'm like, all right, let's get on the line. And so we get on the line and I prove myself right every single time. They actually have gone to the books and looked up what I was telling them. They're like, oh, yeah, you're right. So not every CPA is created equally, just saying. And I am super excited to be with my CPA as well, um, knowing that she's going to strategize, right? I know that she's going to strategize with me. My husband actually went through the same thing. He's like, he found this CPA at a real estate investing meetup, right? He was, he talked a great talk, and he says, I work with real estate investors, which is key on a CPA because sometimes they don't put them in the right, put things in the right spot if they don't really specialize in it. And so my husband goes, oh, great, because we have this property and this type, and he goes, I got you, right? And so a couple of years later, he goes, I think I need a new CPA. So he talked a good talk, and I know this is one of the frustrations out there, and I know it's difficult. I mean, first of all, who loves taxes? Who loves to do any of that
Not
stuff?
me. It stresses me out so much. I'm like, I don't understand all these numbers and codes and what was that again and why do they need that? And yeah, no.
So you really want a CPA in your corner and by your side.
Mhm.
Not just that they talked a good game up front, but that they're actually proving it within your tax records,
Mhm.
right? That's what's important. And my husband learned that they're more of a data entry clerk than a CPA. And that's where most are. And this is also what I hear a lot of is, well, I've just used this CPA because my parents used them for years and they're great. They're part of the family. And I would hate to get another CPA. Well, then go ahead, pay more in taxes. It's okay.
Mhm.
So one of my very first tips is to have a CPA review your contracts, review your tax strategy and your past taxes every 3 years. Just have another CPA look at your stuff. You don't have to hire them, but you know what? If they find something great and go, hey, you could do blah, blah, blah and save $10,000, wouldn't you want to hire them? Because they just strategized with you and saved you money.
Absolutely. Gosh, that would be so amazing. But yeah.
Yeah. And then so people get stuck in this rut because it's one of the things we really don't want to pay attention to. We put our head in the sand. We're like, I got to pay taxes. I'm just going to just you go do it. It's kind of painful, right? To know that you have to pay these taxes and you just want someone to handle it.
Mhm.
I get it, but you have to be the leader of your money.
Mhm.
You have to be the leader of your money. I have a money date with my money every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And depending on what needs to happen, according to my strategy with my CPA, it's met with my money date on Thursday at 8 a.m. Right. And if I have to bring her on to say, hey, let's review all the books together, right? Have them lead you through it so that
Mhm.
you understand. Don't expect to understand it. Have them train you to understand it. That's their job. And if you don't understand it, you're probably paying way too much in taxes. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
So that's my first tip is to have a CPA strategize with you, actually. And then the second tip would be to have it reviewed by a new CPA every 3 years. So that's the two tips right there. What are your thoughts on that, Becky?
I think that's absolutely amazing. And it was about a 3-year run that I was using one CPA. And it it spoke volumes to me whenever I changed our plan, the way that they reacted to it. It was like this person isn't on my team, isn't my team member, isn't it's like not all clients are created equal. Not all team members are created equal. And sometimes you do need to get up and move around and find a different team member just to make sure that you're doing the best you can with what you've got. So you know, a little bit of story, my background story is that I had some gas stations for a while, and And I went in, we partnered, me and a few business partners partnered up. We took over some gas stations. In a 5-month period, we took over 6 gas stations, and there was a whole lot of things about taxes that I knew nothing about. And on the other side of that, I had some tax challenges. And so I've had to hire tax attorneys to figure it out with me. I've hired other tax people that I've spent thousands of dollars with them to realize that the strategy that they were trying to use with me was not going to work for what I was doing. I've gotten to the end and hired a tax attorney just so that I'd have his name on the top of the thing so that the IRS would work out a payment plan with me. And now I'm on the other side of that. And she's like, hey, you file this, you do this conversation I had, you file this, you do this, you do that. And she's not a tax person, but she is a tax, but she's a bookkeeper and a CPA. But she's not a tax attorney. And so, but she's saying, this is how you do this. This is how you do offering compromises. And she's walking me through it. And she's like, hey, because I'm getting ready to sell my house. And so I want to make sure that Uncle Sam doesn't take all my money when I close my loan. And she's like, hey, we can do an offer and compromise and make it work. And so the thing is with every mess, we have more things that we learn on how to keep more of the money that we make. But at the end of the day, the whole point of us doing this whole podcast is to go, hey, like, you guys need to keep more of the money that you're making too. And we've got some strategies, and we've got some connection, and we've got some team to connect you with so that you can win too, no matter what your situation is, no matter what your story is.
Mhm.
And we'll get into because I wanted to go into why to have a home-based business, but I think there was a couple more things like capital gains that I wanted to know more. Joanna, because I thought one thing and Joanna's like, no. And I'm like, well, you and I talk every week and I didn't realize this. So if I had the question, then I guarantee other people might have some real estate investing thoughts, questions about capital gains and how to make that work for you, and how to maybe write off things so that you're not paying capital gains on property.
Absolutely. So what was your question that you had specifically?
So I'm selling my house, and I thought that I had to pay, I might have to pay capital gains, and where do I need to reinvest that? And then you were like, oh no, it doesn't work that way on personal property. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, how does that work? And then she started to go into it. I'm like, no, let's hit the record button, and so everybody can hear this. So anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're, first of all, if you're in your home more than 2 years, you have the capital gains exempt tax. Okay. So where capital gains really falls into is investment property. And that's what they consider. If you've been in your home 2 years or less, then you have different types of gains taxes. Right. Okay. So let me clarify that. So if you're in your house for 1 year or less than 1 year, that's short-term capital gains, because they're assuming that, and it's a different percentage because you live in it, right? Versus 2+ years. So anything over a year is long-term gains. Okay. And so you've been in there 2 years or more, actually living in the building, so you're exempt from capital gains. Do you see the storyline, how it goes?
Mhm. And so would a strategy be like for a flipper to go move into a property for 2 years and then sell it, and then they had to pay less? Or is it like sometimes I think like even in penalties and taxes, they're like, oh, well, you have to pay more, but nobody ever says how much more. And what if it was only like $15 more just to do it this way instead? You know what I mean? Like, what would be the smarter strategy when it
Well,
comes
and then that's what you have to strategize with when you're, if you look at a property and you go, this is what I can do. You need the story, how the story is going to play out in order to know which way it can go, right? Because what if it is only $15 difference? Like, who cares, right?
right?
You could do that. But if it's thousands of dollars difference, you're going to go, whoa, I'm not going to do it that way.
Right.
So totally, you have to get, I mean, I'm going to sound like an attorney here. It depends on the story, right? Because each one is different.
Mhm.
when
Which is why
you're
it's great to have a coach like you so that you can go to you anytime you wanted to do that stuff when it comes to real estate. But then a CPA for all the other tax
Oh,
strategies.
absolutely. Absolutely. I help you to ask what to ask your CPA because most don't know, which is why I love the CPA I have because she tells me things I don't know and I love it, you know. So, and I know a lot because I used to do taxes, right? I've read tax law and I know what you can do and cannot do for the most part,
Mhm.
right? Now, laws change all the time, and I expect my CPA to be on top of that, and she totally is. And she brings me new strategy all the time, right? Oh, no, well, now we could do it this way. The laws have changed, so now we're going to do blah, blah, blah. That's what they should be doing, not just collecting your stuff, writing it up, say, here's your uh, tax return, bye bye, see you next year.
Mhm.
That's not how CPAs should work for you. Okay. CPA should be depending on your business and what you're doing. Again, depends is the word. Uh, either every 6 months, you're tapping into different things. Life changes all the time. So if you
Mhm.
don't really have a business and you're looking at doing some side hustle stuff, maybe once every 6 months or once a quarter, right? Um, if you are already in a business, you should be a minimum of once a quarter speaking to your CPA. This is what's happening. Here are my books straight, and here's this, right?
Mhm.
And if you are a business that is in motion, like this is your primary business, and it is in motion, making multi six figures, it's almost like a monthly or weekly visit to your CPA, making sure your books are straight. And all it is your CPA. People go, oh my God, that's overwhelming, and I don't have to pay for that. Do you want to keep more of the money you make? Right?
Mhm.
um, it is so important that they are on top of your books and leading you through it so that you can make strategic moves according to what they see. And you're not going to know that if you don't meet with them on a regular basis. Okay. It's part of
Yeah.
doing business. So hopefully you guys got the whole capital gains structure and the importance of your CPA and the frequency of your CPA. And one of the other things, Becky's going to go over home-based business benefits, but also like how to pay your kids, right? Like how to write off your kids or write off and pay your kids through an S corp. I'll get into that a little bit, and then also, you know, just making sure all your players are working together is what I'll end with. Go for it, Beck.
Good. So yeah, I wanted to go into home-based business a little bit because we talk about wealth building strategies. And there's a lot of people that are like, man, I just want to start a business at home. And they're like, oh, where do I start? What do I do? But I highly encourage, like, I can't remember who quoted it, but it's a quote, just know it's somebody important that quoted that if you don't have a home-based business, basically you're kind of brain dead. Like it's crazy. Oh, it's Sandy Boykins talks about how everybody in America should have a home-based business because there's so many tax write-offs to it. Even
Mm.
W-2 employees should have some sort of home-based business, and kind of, we that's part of credit, that's part of strategy, that's part of wealth building strategies, that's part of what we talk about. What's the easiest one to do and why? What do you feel called to do? Who do you feel called to be? And we have a super simple side hustle that we do as a home-based business too, and it brings in money. The overhead is low, but like what if I were a W-2 employee and I wanted to save more money on taxes? Like the money's going to either Uncle Sam or you can use it for yourself. And that's where having a home-based business is so awesome, because you'll use your cell phone to make phone calls to talk to people about things that have to do with your business. And so voila, where you were paying Uncle Sam, $60 a month for a cell phone bill, now you get to write that off because you have a home-based business. And so you were paying for it anyway, but now Uncle Sam's paying for it for you. And
Hmm.
so now totally consult with a CPA and make sure you do everything on the up and up. But that's the point of having a home-based business, is because you get to write off a portion of your house, you get to write off a portion of your electric, your water, your gas, and Uncle Sam's just taking it anyway. So it's not coming out of your pocket to even do it. It's coming out of your pocket now. You're just giving it to the government to do what they do with the money. Right. And so that is why it's so awesome to have more than one strategy when it comes to wealth building principles. I believe that is the new economy, that if you don't have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, then life's going to go crazy when things fall apart, because we have no control over some of the things that occur, like the chaos of the last couple of years, right? And so
Mhm.
when we don't have any control over that, but we do have control over our economy, we do have control over coming up with wealth building strategies that kick off income to us no matter what. And we should have more than one strategy because of the A, B, and C. You need a plan A, B, and C, multiple streams of income so that you can go live your purpose in this world, whatever God called you to do. So just say,
Well, absolutely. That's a good point. Now, you just said whatever God called you to do. What if you don't know? Like, what if you're like, I have no idea. I'm just working like a horse on a hamster wheel and not even making any money at my job, and I have no time freedom. Like, what would you say to somebody like that?
I'd say, well, let's sit down and talk. I would say it's time to talk. It's time to talk to me and Joanna, me or Joanna. It doesn't really matter. Get us, find us, DM us. There's a million ways to find us online. And the reason that I say that is because we teach a financial fitness course. That's a very basic bottom level, right? So we have a foundation that anybody can get started with us. It's like $30 a month. I mean, come on now. And it works through like your whole strategy of coming up with a plan for you, for your life, what's important to you, why it's important to you, and then work in the numbers. And then maybe you're way past that level, right? And then we have all sorts of other coaching programs, things that we do, that we teach people how to get to your next leadership level in life, whatever that looks like. So there's a beyond financial fitness course that we help facilitate people learning all about that, and that talks about those wealth building strategies to start bringing it back around. So wherever you fall on that chart of where you need to be, like, we've got a strategy for it. So get with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right now, I think one of the ones is earning free Bitcoin rewards is another strategy for people interested in that. People interested in saving on gas or at, multiple stores. Like, that's a whole side hustle thing that we have for people that need a side hustle. And then a
Mhm.
whole leadership program of people that are like at the level of, I'm a multi-million dollar business. Let's make this happen. Let's grow it even more. And how do I take my tribe with me? Right.
Mhm.
So, as Becky was saying, multiple levels to really get you rocking and rolling and to keep more of the money you make. That is the bottom line. Let's keep more of the money you make. So, with that being said, um, she went over wanting a home-based business. Let's say you have one. The next step is, are you an LLC or an S corp, right? And some people might going, what?
Mhm.
Um, and I get it. I get it. Which can be confusing. And I was just on a call yesterday. The girl's been in business for 30 years and it does not have a structure for her business. So she's paying too much in taxes. I'm just saying, she's paying too
Mhm.
much in taxes. So she's like, yeah, I just got my LLC like last month and I've been in business for 30 years. I went, oh. So at least she's on the right track now, right? And let's just say now you're making money, you've had your LLC, and an S corp will save you on self-employment tax. So talk with your CPA, your attorney, strategize on where you're at, how much you're making, and what is your best structure. Because even if you have an LLC and you're not quite sure how next year's going to go, you can ask to be taxed as an S corp and not really make that next step yet. And here's where the S corp gets important. It's saving you on self-employment taxes. You actually can hire your children and teach them about money, right? And child labor, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. child labor is awesome. Uh, we do it as a benefit to them, right? And I say child labor jokingly, so please don't hit me up with hate mail. But it teaches them about money because it's like doing chores, right? It teaches them to go do a job and they get paid for it, right? They get paid through the S corp as a W-2 employee. And here's what's great about that is you can pay them $20. They can go buy their own tennis shoes, their own, well, that's $100, right? But their own toothpaste, their own and that's a tax write-off for you, for them to buy their own toothpaste. And it teaches them how to manage their money because maybe they wanted candy or something and they're like, oh, I only have the $20 and I can't afford that. I have to go do more chores and earn more money in order to get the tennis shoes that I want. Right? So it teaches them about money. It's a huge ripple to send down to your children. And so being able to put your kids on payroll is a big deal and a best way to keep more of the money you make. For instance, Mark was his kids, he had a 16-year-old who did his SEO and his marketing. He had two twins, about 13 years old, two twins. He had a set of twins. How's that? Two girls, about 13 years old. They worked in the office and did some data entry and certain things. And then a 9-year-old that was the master paper shredder. Like they all earned money in the business. And here's what's great about this. Here is what's great about this. And I had a client stand up in my workshop one day and I handed him the microphone and, tell everybody what you learned. He goes, I'm pissed. I'm like, oh God. Here's this older gentleman. He's kind of husky looking. He could be scary if he wants to be. And he said he was pissed. He just right into the microphone. I go, okay, why don't you tell us why? And, I'm thinking, did I say something wrong? Is there, what's going on? Nobody told me this. I put 4 kids through college and nobody told me that I could get an S corp, pay them. And here's where I was going to next, right? Is you could take the money that you're paying them and give them a 401k or an account that you are putting the money towards, right? Like what if they're, not young enough to, or not old enough to spend it, right? I think most of them are nowadays. They're super smart these days. But anyways, it's about the structure, like building that money up for college, right? And he was pissed because he put 4 kids through college that he could have had this structure and built up with it. So it was practically for free. No, he had to make it in addition to what he was doing. And so this, my friends, is what I'm talking about. I'm so passionate about keeping more of the money you make because they don't teach you this in school. They do not teach you this in school. And I have a whole PDF on these tips that you can use to keep more of the money you make. So if you're interested in that, type in the comments, type money in the comments, and I'll send you the 5 biggest tips to saving and keeping more of the money you make through tax strategy, right? That was just one example of putting his kids to work and saving money because he sent his son to college. The company sent his son to college. The company paid for it because it was paid training for the employee, right? And he went to Ohio for college and would come home once a year, Christmas, to corporate headquarters, right? And the whole thing was a tax write-off. So my friends, I'm just letting you know there's so much you can do according to your story. That's just one example of a story of how the company gets to write off that education. You're going to pay for it anyways. You might as well, have Uncle Sam pay for it. So again, if you're looking for that PDF, we're going to go ahead and just type money in the comments, and our team will reach out to you and get you that PDF. It is the 5 biggest tips to keeping more of the money that you make. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this, Becky?
Oh gosh, no, I feel pretty complete in this moment. I'm super excited that I got a hold of a good bookkeeper person today. So I'm like
Yay!
Christmas for me. And I think you got a hold of yours again this last, you had lost touch and got a hold of, and now you're super excited about it. So I just feel like it could be so, it's so very important. But I think that a really, a lot of people just run to H&R Block, they give them their W-2s and they just don't even really think about it. They're too busy having to train time for money to start thinking through some ways that they could start saving some of the money. And I want to bring this down to like a super small scale too. Just super quick, it just came to my heart. But
Sure.
like like if you're making, let's say you're making $20 an hour, okay? You're making $20 an hour and you're paying your cell phone bill and you're paying $60 for it. So if you had a home-based business, and you got to write that off because it's money that was being taken out of your paycheck anyway for taxes, but you got to write it off now. Now you just gained 3 hours of time, because if it was $20 an hour and you got to write that off, you had to work that anyway. You worked it anyway. Uncle Sam can keep it or you can keep it. And so this is how you don't have to work as hard for the money that you make
Mm,
anyway. We trade a lot of time for money. And so if we don't start getting smarter about it, then we're going to trade a lot more time for money. Uh,
yeah, good
because the
point.
price of everything is going up. So I highly encourage you to download her PDF and get with us, and let's come up with some strategies to get smarter so that life doesn't have to be so hard.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, one last tip that I wanted to pull together was making sure that your team is all on board, because your attorney, your CPA, anyone else involved in your company, if they're not on the same page with your vision and your mission, they could lead you into a different way that is not in alignment with your mission. So make sure you're all, even your team members, everyone's all on board with your vision, your mission, your story,
Yeah.
right? And then they all know to be on the same train and lead you in the same direction, according to your vision and mission. So I hope this was helpful. You guys, type value in the comments if you got some value here at the Trinity Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.